JBN, we keep you informed. 19 guns stolen from security company. Despite state security forces putting a lid on criminal activities in the parish of St. James, now under a state of public emergency, criminals managed to make off with 19 firearms and about 150 rounds of assorted ammunition from a private security company. Police reported that the weapons, which were stolen between Thursday evening and Friday afternoon, include 15 revolvers and 4 shotguns. The name of the company was not released by investigators, who confirmed the break-in and theft yesterday, but it was reported that the Iron Shore Industrial Estate-based security firm was locked up by its owner Thursday evening with weapons and ammunition safely put away. According to the police, upon the owner's return to the establishment about 6 p.m. on Friday, he discovered that 2 padlocks were removed from the door and that the building was forcibly entered into. Police then, after inspecting the building, it was found that a safe with the firearms and ammunition was broken into and all items stolen. 3 motorcycles, desktop computers, and a recording system for CCTV were also reported missing, the police said. Up to late yesterday, police investigators said they were still without a lead in the break-in and theft. The burglary of the security company was the second report of a major criminal activity in St. James in the last week. It was reported that about 8:55 p.m. Tuesday, a group of brazen gunmen traveling in a motor car in an attempted robbery shot up a truck traveling on the Elegant Corridor, injuring the 3 occupants. The injured truck driver sped from the attackers and sought refuge at the Coral Gardens police station. The truck was believed to have been transporting a large sum of money. Woman shot dead in St. Mary. A Igler from Anoto Bay in St. Mary was yesterday morning shot dead and a male injured by unknown assailants in a shooting incident at the intersection of the Anoto Bay Main Road and Cargill Lane. Dead is 40-year-old Valerie Richards of a Gibraltar address. Reports from the police's Corporate Communications Unit, CCU, are that Richards was a pillion on a motorcycle driven by the man about 12:15 a.m., traveling in an easterly direction. Upon reaching the intersection, they were pounced upon by 2 men on foot armed with handguns. The men opened gunfire, hitting the 2 people. Both were taken to the hospital where she was pronounced dead. A Nova constable under probe after losing service firearm in taxi. A police constable attached to the Sandy Bay police station in Hanover is reportedly under probe after losing his service firearm in a taxi on Saturday, May 25. The policeman reportedly lost the service vehicle while traveling in the taxi from Hopewell to the Sandy Bay station after completing beat duties in the Hopewell area. After realizing that the weapon was missing upon reaching the station, the distressed constable went in search of the taxi and its driver, but was unsuccessful in finding them. He then reported it to his superiors. When contacted, a police officer at the station would only confirm the probe. Efforts to reach head of the Hanover Police, Superintendent Sharon Beeport, proved futile. As word spread in the community about the incident, residents lashed out at the police high command for not providing adequate service vehicles for the police station. The residents say police personnel are regularly forced to take public transportation because of the lack of service vehicles. Me see the policeman when he go in at the car, but it's not a regular taxi, so me don't even know it is, and him can't blame the policeman because him should not have to be traveling in a taxi from the first place, one female vendor said. The police then too worthless. You can't have police a walk with gun and them have to take taxi coming at the community and back a station, she lamented. 22-year-old shot dead in eastern Kingston. The police are reporting that a 22-year-old man was shot dead by unknown assailants on Preston Road in eastern Kingston early Saturday morning. The deceased has been identified as Romario Morrison of Madison Avenue, Kingston 2. Reports from the Wellington Town Police are that residents heard explosions about 8:25 a.m. and found Morrison suffering from gunshot wounds on the roadway. He was rushed to the hospital where he was pronounced dead. 3 injured in highway crash, at least 1 in critical condition. 3 persons traveling in a silver Nissan Tiida motor car were injured during a collision on the PJ Patterson Highway on Sunday. The car was reportedly heading in the direction of Maypen at the time of the crash. According to eyewitnesses, a male, a female toddler, and a young lady were injured, at least one in a critical condition. During the collision, which reportedly occurred when a tire on the teeter blew out while the car was traveling on the roadway. It's our job to expose corruption, says Bunting. Manchester Central Member of Parliament Peter Bunting says he sometimes feels almost apologetic having to constantly hammer away in Parliament at evidence of corruption practices by the Andrew Holness-led administration. Addressing comrades at a divisional meeting in Mandeville recently, Bunting said Jamaicans were being worn down by the several reports of corruption and scandal. These include allegations of financial wrongdoing and nepotism at the oil refinery Petrojam, which eventually led to the resignation of then Energy Minister Andrew Wheatley, and reports of misconduct at the Ministry of Education, which triggered the fall of Education Minister Senator Ruel Reid. Jamaicans, he said, shouldn't make the mistake of blaming the opposition People's National Party PNP for exposing corruption in government. We have seen where the country is suffering from what I would call Petrojam fatigue, too much of it, said Bunting. I almost feel apologetic to go back to Parliament, go back to the Public Accounts Committee and keep hammering away, not at the same thing, but at more and more examples of corruption, he said. Bunting, a former National Security Minister and an investment banker, complained that nobody is being held accountable for corruption. He spoke of a recent case of dead men telling no tales, when the finger was pointed at a deceased former Jamaica Labour Party councillor as the man who had given instructions to divert a Petrojam donation from one citizens' association to another. To make matters worse, said Bunting, the Auditor General says she can't find any evidence that either Citizens Association 1 or 2 actually exist. Jamaicans, he said, shouldn't blame opposition members of Parliament for their persistence in bringing the allegations of corruption before Parliament and to the attention of the country. That is our job. That is our responsibility. If we don't do it, we'll be dropping our hands on the work, and we are not doing that. Those who are tired of hearing about Petrojam corruption every week, don't blame the opposition. Blame those who were thieving. Blame those who were corrupt. Blame those who were promoting their friend and company. That's who you must blame, not the opposition, said Bunting. He rejected suggestions that questioning of the government's sale of the Ocharias property rooms on the beach was uncalled for and could discourage investment in the Jamaican economy. I hear people talking about investors will be discouraged and will pick up their bags and go if there's public scrutiny of investment. Any investor who shies away from transparency and accountability with public funds is not the type of investor we want in this country. And I can say that as someone who has built a career in investment banking, a career encouraging investment, I am telling you, anybody who is afraid of accountability, transparency, and audit of what happens with taxpayers' money is not the type of investor you want in this country. They have a different agenda, he said. Former Contractor General Derek Harrison, whose office has been subsued under the Integrity Commission, alleged in a report published in late April that the sale of rooms on the beach at millions of US dollars below the assessed market value amounted to an insult to the Jamaican people. Harrison also charged a cabinet minister, Darrell Vaz, improperly involved himself in the transaction, thereby undermining the Urban Development Corporation, which had the responsibility to negotiate the sale. Vaz and the government vigorously denied the allegations and have insisted that the sale of the property to Petro-Carib Properties Limited at the discounted price will prove to be of immense value to the country. Chuck blames banks for fraud racket boom. Minister of Justice Delroy Chuck has called for bankers to provide more foolproof systems to curb the incidence of fraud at financial institutions, following suggestions that the justice system is not doing enough to deter white-collar crooks. It was revealed last week that domestic banks and other financial institutions lost at least $750 million to fraud last year through a network of fraudsters whose elaborate network spans bogus checks, rental accounts, and card pin rackets. May I say that prevention is better than cure, and I'm not too sure that sentencing and conviction are the real way to stop many of these fraudsters. What is important is for the financial institutions to put in place sufficient protective and preventative measures to ensure that fraudsters do not get through their financial systems, Chuck said. According to the Jamaica Constabulary Force data, there were 3,400 cases of regular and electronic fraud reported to the police from 2013 to 2018. Only 115 persons were found guilty out of 1,029 held for various rackets. Anti-fraud expert at the Jamaica Bankers Association, Lloyd Parchment, has attributed the low conviction rate for fraud locally to the general belief that fraud is a benign white-collared crime. The justice system does not recognize fraud as a very important area of criminal activity. They do not treat it seriously. We in the banking sector have continuously been pressing the justice system to recognize fraud for what it is, because we are contending that fraud and the money gained from fraud is fueling more serious hardened criminal activity that the system isn't looking into, he said. But Chuck contends that judges convict based on evidence provided. The banks are generally required to assist in providing this evidence to the police. If the evidence is not persuasive enough, then it is unlikely that one can get a conviction. So oftentimes the real difficulty in getting convictions will be the question of whether or not the evidence provided by the victim, that is usually the banks or the financial institution, whether they have provided strong evidence to convict the offenders, the Justice Minister said. If the evidence is not overwhelming or sufficiently strong, you cannot expect the judge to convict or the jury if it is a jury trial. So what is lacking is the persuasive and strong evidence to bring about the conviction, he lamented. Chuck said while he has heard concerns that sentences are not sufficiently harsh and punitive to send the right signal to fraudsters, he does not believe that longer jail time will prove to be a deterrent. Fraud convicts are generally slapped with sentences of less than 5 years. Long, harsh penalties won't stop people from taking the risk to breach and defraud financial systems. So it is more important that you prevent rather than be dependent on the justice system to impose life sentences to stop them, he said. JBN, we keep you informed. Please remember to like, subscribe, share, leave us a comment, and click the notification bell to receive our daily news items.